User-defined function, as the name itself says, it is completely dependent on the user. Default parameter, as we have learned a bit regarding this, we know that the values will be assigned defaultly. A function is a reusable block of code that can perform some specific task. Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the first session of Unit 2. Unit 2 and a Python programming language is all about understanding and learning regarding Python functions. So let's start the session. Yes, this is the agenda of today's session where we will be understanding like what exactly a function is. We will be defining the function. Then we will be understanding what are the different types of functions there are available under Python programming. Then we will also understand how to call a function followed by passing parameters as well as arguments. Then we will also understand like what is a return statement all about. Then there is something called as default parameters, which is utilized defaultly under Python programming. So we will also be understanding regarding this default program. Then we will also understand like what is a command line argument is all about. Then there is something called as keyword arguments too. We will also be learning regarding these things. Then followed by we will understand what is recursive functions and what are its scope, as well as the lifetime of variables in the functions will all be learned under this session. All right, let's begin the session and initially let's understand like what is a function all about. A function is a reusable block of code that can perform some specific task. For example, if we consider arithmetic operation completely, then under arithmetic operation, as we know, there are multiple operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. So all these operations can be considered as each single function, and it can be directly called as a function whenever it is required. Like if we just need a multiplication block, then we can directly call a multiplication function block instead of again and again going with the arithmetic ordering. Okay, so that's what function is all about. But the main thing regarding Python functions is it supports both built-in function as well as user-defined functions too. So this is a huge advantage with respect to Python programming. Let's understand how Python function helps. Yes, it helps in reusing the code, followed by it provides modularity. Then by using Python functions, we can easily read the parameters, so it gives readability as well as easy debugging option. So these are very helpful. Thus Python functions are very helpful with respect to Python programming. As we did understood like what is a function and what is the importance of that function, then followed by we did also understood there are multiple types of functions that are like built-in functions as well as user-defined functions. Now let's exactly understand like what are the different types of functions that are available under Python programming. The first one is a built-in function. It is none other than the various built-in functions that are available with respect to Python programming. Like example, if we want to print some statement, then we can give as print open and closing parenthesis, followed by if we want to define the length of some variable, then we can directly use len keyword followed by the parenthesis. So in this way, these are few of the examples of our built-in functions. Next type of function is user-defined function. User-defined function, as the name itself says, it is completely dependent on the user. Like depending on the user requirement, he can build a complete block of code which can be utilized further for processing. Example that can be considered as like a my underscore function, open close parenthesis, etc. Next type of function that we can consider is none other than lambda functions. These are very small enormous functions, and the example for this can be like x is to x into 2. It is a smallest function. Okay, then followed by the next type of function that we are dealing with is none other than recursive functions. Recursive function, these are the functions that are capable of calling themselves whenever there is a requirement regarding your application. So the example for this recursive function that can be considered is factorial of some factor. Here we have considered as a n. All right. So finally, what we have understood is the types of functions under Python programming are none other than starting with the built-in function, then the user-defined function, followed by lambda function, then lastly the recursive functions. So these are few of the very important functions that are available under Python programming. Up next, let's see how to define a function. So it is very simple. As we know that we need to define a function, the keyword that we can utilize here is none other than def, that is define keyword, which is utilized to define any of the function with respect to Python programming. And the syntax that we have to follow in order to define is like we have to put the keyword, that is def, followed by the function name, and inside the parenthesis we have to write the parameters that we are up to define. Okay, so let's see an example for this. Like here we have considered the keyword def. Okay, the function name what we have defined is none other than greet, followed by the parameter that we have considered is a name. So we are greeting a person. So that is the function what I am defining or creating. So this is an example for a user-defined function. Great, right? Up next, let's see how to print a function. So we will be dealing with the keyword print, followed by f of hello, and inside the parenthesis what we have to define? Yes, it's none other than the parameter that we are up to define. Alright, this is a simple thing that we have to follow with respect to defining a Python function. Then let's head up with understanding how to call a function. Calling function is also very simple. Here what we will do is we will directly define the function name, then followed by the required argument inside the parenthesis. For example, here we can see greet, that is a function name, followed by the required argument. So the argument what we have defined here is a name, that is a John. So what we are saying, we need to greet John. Let's see what is the output. So the output will be printed as hello John. So this is how we can directly call a function. It is very easy. We have to directly name the function name, then followed by the required argument inside the parenthesis. Up next, as we know, we will be defining an argument inside a function, isn't it? So it will become very important and crucial to understand like how to pass an argument or parameters. There are various formats of passing that argument. So let's see one by one like how the arguments can be passed inside the functions. Starting with positional argument. Positional argument are defined or passed in the order. For example, here we can see we have defined a function greet followed by the name, the first argument, and then the age of that person, that is we have written like 30 for example. So this is the order that we can follow with respect to defining any of the argument inside a function. Alright, the next type of passing an argument is none other than keyword arguments. Keyword arguments is passed with the parameters name. For example, let's consider that we have a function of student underscore information where we are gathering the information of a student, and we are defining various arguments like first underscore name, and that is defined as Jane, and the last name of that student is Joe. Then the field that he has opted is considered as major, which is defined as computer science, then followed by the GPA or CGPA that the student has scored until now is none other than, it's defined as 3.8. Now, these things what we have defined, how will it be shown in the output? Yes, let's see that now. So initially in the output, we will be seeing the name that is concatenated together, that is Jane Doe, followed by the major or the field that he has opted, that is computer science, and the GPA what he has secured, it is 3.8 as we have defined. So this is how we will be getting an output. Next type of parameter is a default parameter. Default parameters, like whenever we have forgotten to pass a parameter in those cases, or else in many cases what happens is we believe that defaultly the parameter will be completed. These things is carried forward by a parameter that is none other than a default parameter, which gives a default value if anything is not defined. The example here, we have considered a function greet followed by a name Alex. So this is printed in the output as hello Alex. So these are the various types of passing parameters or arguments. Moving forward, let's understand the return statement in depth. Return statement, as the name itself says, it is used to return some value. So what does it returns? The return statement is used to send a value back to the caller. Sometimes what happens is while processing some information, there will be a useful information that is required even for a sender as well as a receiver, right? At those cases, if sender fails to remember that, then at those instances, what can be done is we can utilize this return statement where the receiver can send the particular value back to the caller. Fine, let's see an example for this. Here we have defined a function that is a user defined. So we are using the keyword def followed by the function name add, and the arguments that we have used here is a comma b. Then we are using return a plus b. Okay, so this value has to be returned to the caller. So let's see the next statement. What we have defined is none other than result equals add of the arguments, that is 2 comma 3. Then finally we will be printing that result. At the output, what we get is a value which is sent back to the caller because we have utilized the return keyword or the return statement. As you notice, the return statement uses the syntax return followed by open and close parenthesis. Great, let's move forward. Yes, now let's understand this default parameter in depth. The syntax for this, we can note here, we are defining a user defined function. So we are going with def keyword followed by the function name that we have considered. Any name you can give here, followed by the parameter that we are supposed to define inside that function. Next, what we have to go with is a pass parameter, that is a function body will be followed by this line. Great. Default parameter, as we have learned a bit regarding this, we know that the values will be assigned defaultly and it is completely used whenever the arguments are not defined inside the function. Alright, let's see an example for this. We are defining a greet function followed by name, which is defined as world. Then what do we need to print? We are printing hello name. So you might see here we have a F inside the brackets. Yes, it gives other meaning. It's not printf as we use in our C or any of the other programming languages. What it is, we will learn in our further sessions, not to worry, okay? But for now, let's understand like this is a parameter that we use. Followed by we are defining the function greet of, and the output what we can expect is none other than hello world. Okay, now we are defining that value inside. So we have given as John, the argument that we have defined is a John, and the output what we can expect is hello John, because we have defined the function greet. Whenever we give that greet function, it is understood like it has to come out with a greeting word hello. All right, let's move forward. The next type of argument is command line argument. It is used to pass arguments to the Python scripts from the command lines, and we use the syntax or the extension has sys.argument v in order to access the arguments. The example for this is, initially we are importing that sys file, and further we are printing a argument, that is command line argument, which is defined as sys.arg v followed by the open and close square parenthesis. Thus, the output, what we can expect here is a first argument. Yes, this is how the command line argument works. Let's move forward and understand what exactly is a keyword argument all about. Keyword argument is also called as named arguments. These are the values that are passed explicitly referring the parameter name and relying on their position in the function calls. This results in increasing of code readability as well as allowing the arguments to be defined or declared in a set of order. Let's see an example for this keyword argument where we are starting with diff greet of name comma age followed by we are printing hello followed by name, you are, age, what we have considered here as parameter, year, old. Okay, now it's a time to just define the name as well as age that we are doing here. Greet name equals John followed by the age 30. So what we can expect in the output? Yes, hello John, you are 30 years old. So this is how keyword arguments work. Up next, let's see the next type of function, that is none other than the recursive function. So recursive function is a type of function that solves a problem by calling itself with the smaller versions of the same problem. So in a simple words, what happens here is the complete complex program is broken down until a simple base case is reached. All right, let's see an example for this. So do you remember we had written the same example in our previous slides? Here we are using a user-defined function. We are defining that with a function name factorial followed by an argument n, and we are defining if loop where we are assigning n is equal to 0 followed by it has to return 1, and it has been broken. How it has been broken? It has to return n with a multiplicative with factorial of n minus 1. So you might observe from n it is breaking down to n minus 1 in order to go with its base case. Finally, the thing what we can define as print factorial of that value, and at the output we will be getting the factorial of 5, that is none other than 120. So the 5 factorial is like 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Yes. That's how we will be resulting with a value of 120. Up next, let's understand what are the scope and lifetime of a variable. So whenever we speak with a scope, there will be various scope, but initially we will consider two of it, which is none other than a local scope and a global scope. So let's see what happens under this local scope. Local in the sense the values are defined inside the function or within the function, and the global scope is none other than the variables are defined outside the functions. So that is the difference between the local scope as well as the global scope. Next, let's understand what is a lifetime of variables. The duration of variable or the lifetime of variable is completely dependent on the memory of that variable. So that is what the scope as well as the lifetime of variable is all about. So this was all about today's session. In next session, we will be discussing regarding the strings and its operations. So this is all for today's session. Thank you.